11 Effective Ways to Get Smarter, Wise Man. How are wisdom and knowledge different from each other? Don't these words mean the same thing? Both mean to get and process information, but they are used in different ways. Knowledge is a group of facts that you've learned and can explain. Wisdom goes one step further because it takes what you've learned and shows you how to use it. This situation could be your actions or your relationships with other people. For example, you can read 100 books on carpentry and know everything there is to know about it in theory. However, you can only gain the wisdom to know when to move a piece of oak on a lathe based on how its smell changes by doing it. In the same way, knowing can mean knowing that your partner's work is making them stressed and worried. Wise people, on the other hand, will comfort them and try to ease their worries instead of bringing up a problem at that time. In its most basic form, wisdom is knowledge put to use. Let's look at some of the things you can do to gain more knowledge. 1. Learn as much as you can from life. You can't teach someone how to be wise. Wisdom can only be gained through experience, while knowledge can be gained through study and observation. So, getting out there and living is one of the best ways to get wise. You can learn a surprising amount just by going through things for yourself. Whenever you can, travel as much as you can. If you're still in school, join a foreign exchange student program. If possible, go somewhere completely different from where you live now. If you have finished school, you might want to look for work in other countries. Or you could just backpack for a year or two and see how people live on different continents. Alternatively, if you can't travel because you don't have enough money or you can't leave your house for some reason, try to get involved in different things close to home. Volunteer with a group that isn't related to what you usually like to do, or take some classes to learn a wide range of new skills. The more skills you have, the more you'll be able to use the things you've learned in all parts of your life. 2. Read more than you watch TV or movies. Make it a point to take breaks from TV and social media, and read as much as you can. Also, read books from many different genres and about many different things. Active learning like this keeps you interested and keeps your eyes from getting tired from staring at screens for long periods of time. Read about things you are interested in and things you have never heard of before. Learn more about history, people's lives, facts, and nature. Learn about old cultures and new sciences, and try to learn as much as you can about as many different things as you can. If you can do this in more than one language, you get extra points. When you know a lot about a lot of things, you can take ideas from many different places and use them in all parts of your life. For example, let's say your car breaks down in the middle of nowhere and you have to spend the night there. Have you read books about how to stay alive in the wild? Do you know enough about the local plants to know which ones you can eat? Can you use what's around you to keep warm and, relatively, safe until help comes? You can remember a lot of information from everything you read, and you never know when even the smallest piece of information will come in handy. As a bonus, reading makes new connections in the brain, which makes it less likely that you will get Alzheimer's or dementia. 3. Let yourself make mistakes, and when you do, take responsibility for them. No one likes to fail at something, and nobody wants to be embarrassed when they do something terribly wrong in public. Still, this kind of fear can keep people from a lot of different things in life. They might want to avoid making mistakes, especially in front of other people, but the only way to learn is to make mistakes. Do you remember how many times you fell down when you were first learning to walk? Just like that, many times. You can read as many books as you want on a subject and watch as many online tutorials as you want, but the only way to improve your skills is to use them. There will be a lot of mistakes along the way. The important thing is to learn from them. Every time you make a mistake, you learn a new way to avoid making that mistake again. Also, you can share this knowledge with other people so they don't have to make the same mistakes you did. Also, remember that taking responsibility for your mistakes is an important part of becoming wise. If we don't admit that we did something wrong, we can't figure out how to do it right. Also, if your mistake caused something really bad to happen, taking responsibility for it shows a lot of integrity. People will like and respect you a lot more if you are honest about your mistakes instead of trying to hide them or lie about them. It's human to make mistakes, and it takes a lot of wisdom to learn from them with grace and dignity. 4. Listen more and talk less. Do you know the saying, knowledge talks? but wisdom listens? It's a good one and shows the difference between the two well. A person who knows a lot but doesn't have much life experience will often talk about their favorite topic with a lot of energy. They might think they know a lot about the subject and quote a lot of sources they've learned by heart. If this person has spent a lot of time in school, they might talk a lot about their degree, which would show that they know what they're talking about. A wise person, or someone who is on their way to becoming wise, knows that they still have a lot to learn about almost everything. Think of all the expert paleontologists who knew that dinosaurs had skin like lizards, which was tough and leathery. Then, in the 1990s, the Sinosauropteryx was found, showing that some species had feathers instead. Before finding such proof, the idea that dinosaurs had feathers would have been laughed at. Both knowledge and truth are always growing and getting bigger. So, give yourself time and space to learn and grow. 5. Learn to think critically. Depending on who tells it, every story has more than one side. Even if different people are telling the same story. Information is often tweaked by the media in order to get a reaction or response. You might hear different opinions about a situation or event from different news sources, but you might hear different things from regular people who were there. This is why it's so important to learn how to think critically. You can learn to tell the difference between valid arguments and logical fallacies, as well as between facts and emotional responses. Over time, you'll get a better idea of when something is true and when it's being exaggerated for effect, as well as how to react in the best way. 6. Keep an open, neutral mind to let wisdom grow. Immerse yourself in different situations without making assumptions or making judgments. Just watch what happens. Most people find this hard to do, especially if they already feel strongly about a technique, situation, philosophy, etc. The key is to try not to have a strong opinion one way or another and to look at all the information without any bias. Then you can take your time to think about how this information applies to your life and what to do about it. Let's say you take care of your garden in a certain way because that's how your parents, grandparents, etc. have always done it. You were taught that this is the best way, and you know all about these plants and how to care for them. If you don't agree with how someone else takes care of their garden, you can take a step back and find out what they do and why. You might find some methods that would work great in your own yard. You wouldn't have known about these methods if you wouldn't have let yourself think that there might be other ways to do these things. You don't have to feel defensive or protective of the technique you learned because it was your family's technique. Instead, see this information as building on the foundation your family gave you. 7. Spend time with people and ideas that are different from your own. People often find themselves in bubbles where they don't have much information or experience. They'll spend most of their time immersed in topics they like or are already familiar with and talking with people who think like them. Even their online search engines could give them results that fit their tastes. So, they can form opinions and biases based on the little information they have. They might not know what people from different backgrounds think or feel because they only see one side of the story. The only way to deal with this is to find out what other people are thinking, feeling, and going through. 8. Get used to having ideas that might be at odds with each other. Scott Fitzgerald once said, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposite ideas in mind at the same time and still be able to function." This has been used to help people deal with cognitive dissonance, but it also has to do with being aware that two ideas that seem to be at odds with each other can coexist in the same space. Most people feel very uncomfortable when they hear two valid ideas that are at odds with each other. Most people prefer to ignore the many good points and arguments for one side because they would rather have the impression that they are right. Also, being wise means knowing that two sets of facts may seem to contradict each other, but that doesn't mean they aren't valid or true. Take the example of some missionaries who went to help people in the Amazon rainforest. They wanted to teach the kids there, who couldn't read or write and were therefore thought to be uneducated. Still, the missionaries realized that these kids didn't just know the names of hundreds or even thousands of plants around them. They also knew which ones could be eaten, which ones were poisonous, which ones could be used to treat illnesses, and which ones held clean water. These kids didn't know how to read and write, and these kids did, but not in the way the missionaries had expected. There are many ways to look at different things, and the best way to get smarter is to realize that different views can be very real and true. Also, just because ideas or points of view are different doesn't mean they are at odds with each other. For example, Natsiel Mahmood is a leading astrophysicist and aerospace engineer who also happens to be a devoted Muslim. For her, studying these sciences is a way to learn about the world that her God made. Or, before becoming a Buddhist monk, Dr. Mathieu Ricard was a well-known molecular geneticist. You can see how Buddhist philosophy and science have a lot in common and how meditation has a surprising healing effect on the synapses in the brain. Science and faith can live together in the same space, and so can ideas that seem to be at odds with each other. 9. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Modern cancel culture likes to make people out to be bad and ruin their lives for mistakes they think they made. This is especially true for people who are in the public eye and have their every move watched, analyzed, and picked apart by fans and haters alike. The thing is, everyone on the planet has done something they're not very proud of. Most likely, you've said or done things in the past that you now wish you hadn't. Still, it's possible that you also learned some important lessons from those things. When we learn from our mistakes, we sometimes grow the most. You can probably guess that the same thing can happen to other people. People can do terrible things, but that doesn't mean they can't change. Also, it doesn't mean that the good things they've done don't count because of the bad things they've done. Some people won't let books into their homes that were written by people who did bad things. These writers may have been mean to their families, done illegal things, or had ideas that others think are wrong. But do these actions undo the work they've already done? Also, when it comes to authors, artists, and other people whose work we like, we might not know that their work was inspired by things we find disgusting. This is similar to the example of information that contradicts itself above. Ernest Hemingway was a great writer and a horrible person. He also had a lot of health problems, such as severe depression, PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and others. We've never met him, so we don't know how much his problems affected him and made him act the way he did. That doesn't make them right, but it does explain a lot. Even if you like someone's work, that doesn't mean you agree with what they do. Wisdom lets you admit that, yes, you like this work, but that doesn't mean you agree with the creator's point of view or approve of their actions. If we only read books and watched movies made by people whose lives were perfect and whose ideas were exactly the same as ours, we'd spend most of our time staring at blank walls. 10. Give yourself the chance to change your mind. As you learn more about a subject or situation, you'll become more knowledgeable and aware of it all. Then, after you've gone over all the new information you've learned, you'll have a better idea of how to use it in your own life, and the decisions you'll make, etc. When you have more experience and knowledge, you may find that your opinions and beliefs have changed from what they were before. As a result, you might change your mind about the situation or subject, either slightly or a lot. This doesn't make you a liar or a bad person in any way. Instead, you know that when new information comes out, you may have to change our position and opinion. Think of this like a court case where evidence is presented and a decision is made based on that evidence. If and when new evidence comes to light, it could completely change how the case is seen and mean that a whole new trial is needed. Think about how much you've changed since you were young. Whether you learn them in school or through life, you probably have different likes, ideas, and perspectives now than when you were 7. Being an adult doesn't mean you can't learn anymore or that you can't change your mind. On the contrary, we keep learning throughout our lives, which is why elders are always asked for advice because they have a wide range of knowledge about how to put that knowledge to use. Review and question your beliefs often, and give yourself room to change and adapt as you learn and grow. 11. Think carefully about what you do. Not only know what to do, but also when to do it. Even if to do it or not. It's important to be sure of what you love and believe in and to have the courage to stand up for those things, but it's just as important to know when to do so. When not to. Let's say that your beloved pet has a disease that will kill it soon. You know that there are treatments that can help it live longer, but they will be painful and hard for your animal friend. In this situation, ethics also come into play. Yes, the medicines will probably help your pet live longer, but it's important to know yourself and why you want to do this. If you made them live longer, would it be for their benefit or yours? Are you letting your fear of loss win out over letting them go in a peaceful, painless way? Every action has consequences, and it's important to think about what those consequences will be in the long run. Or the lack of it. Wisdom is something you get over the course of your life, so it's important to know that it will take time to get it. But the most amazing thing about wisdom is that no one can ever take it away from you, and you will probably have the chance to teach it to others at some point. Then they can pass on what they have learned. Simply put, when each person gets smarter, it helps the group as a whole on every level. If that's not a reason to get smart as often as possible, I don't know what is.